ABC7.
Eto na.
This is Eyewitness News at 7:30 p.m. on KDOC TV.
He was ousted from his job back in March over his handling of COVID-19, and now the former public health officer for Riverside County is speaking out in an Eyewitness News exclusive. Good evening, I'm David Ono.
And I'm Colleen Sullivan. This is Eyewitness News on KDOC TV, LA's only live local newscast at 7:30 p.m. Dr. Cameron Kaiser had been overseeing public health in Riverside County for more than a decade, but he found himself out of a job this past March over his handling of the pandemic.
And this Eyewitness News exclusive, Inland Empire Bureau Chief Rob McMillan talked with Dr. Kaiser, who hopes lessons can be learned from all of this.
Dr. Cameron Kaiser was Riverside County's health officer for 13 years, and for better or worse, he became the face, although most of the time masked, of local restrictions put in place.
I think probably the most difficult part was just trying to deal with the public response to what was really needed to keep people as safe as possible. I mean, I got some death threats, I got a lot of ugly letters, but there were a lot of people who appreciated how seriously I was taking the situation as well.
I recently spoke exclusively with Dr. Kaiser in his first interview since being removed from his position by the Riverside County Board of Supervisors.
There's certainly nothing that I felt that I should have resigned or stepped down over, and I believe I did the best I could for Riverside County during an unprecedented crisis.
Kaiser didn't want to speak specifically about the board's decision, but many of the restrictions he put in place drew the ire of the public and some members of the board as early as last May, during a contentious pair of meetings when the board voted to rescind many of his orders.
It was very difficult to be up there for 7 hours one day, nearly 11 hours the other one, and have your professional reputation and everything that you stand for dragged through the mud.
As to why Dr. Kaiser was replaced, the only board member who spoke with Eyewitness News about the decision was Supervisor Jeff Hewitt.
There were times where he might have been a little bit more, at least appearing empathetic.
Hewitt says he didn't agree with Kaiser's style, although he says he did respect his decisions.
I think he never wavered from being very true to his beliefs.
And Hewitt gives Kaiser high marks for his plans to allow some schools to reopen.
Obviously, those protocols were pretty good because we didn't have any outbreaks or anything else. So, you know, he could certainly be credited with a lot of that too.
Looking back on his response to the coronavirus and looking ahead to the next pandemic, Kaiser says he believes there are a couple of places we should do things differently. First, he doesn't agree in labeling some businesses essential and others not essential.
We should have just gone simply with capacity limits and strictly enforced distancing and masking, and I think we could have kept most things open.
Secondly, he believes most restrictions shouldn't be statewide or even countywide, but more specific.
We should have some agreed upon boundaries in advance, be they city limits or streets or zip codes or whatever, so that people who are affected can be protected, but people who aren't don't need to be impacted.
And he's concerned with public hospitals getting too much power at the expense of public health departments.
First and foremost, I hope my successor does a good job, but he was handpicked for the role, and he comes from the hospital side, and his reporting structure goes up through the hospital administration. And that's not how the position is defined in the law, because that essentially puts the medical and legal authorities of the health department under the county medical center. How can you do that if we're the ones supposed to be regulating them?
All in all, Kaiser says he has few regrets, especially given the incredibly difficult nature of the coronavirus.
COVID-19's worst attribute is that it's just dangerous enough. It kills efficiently in some age ranges, but hardly at all in others, makes some people quite ill and others have no symptoms to speak of. But after 500,000 dead nationally, including thousands in Riverside County, it was clear that waiting for itself to burn out was always going to be the wrong solution.
Rob McMillan, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Police say a Los Feliz home